Hello and welcome to Prairie Pulse. On today's show, Matt Oline had a chance to visit with a very special guest.
Coming up later on Prairie Pulse, we'll take a look at a fascinating exhibit making its way through Northwest Minnesota museums. But first, my guest is Mike Dragosevich, the publisher of Fargo Monthly Magazine. And here it is, Fargo Monthly Magazine. I'm sure you've seen it all over the city and the region. And Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Matt.
And first of all, before we get into the magazine, tell us about yourself, your background, where you're from originally, and how you became a magazine publisher.
You know, it was a complete random story. It's my last 10 years of my life have been very random. I think is the word to say. Grew up in south side of Chicago, kind of a diverse area, all Irish neighborhood actually. A 6'6" Croatian and Irish neighborhood was kind of interesting. But recruited to play football for NDSU. Came out to Fargo. Kind of had an experience growing up that most don't around here haven't experienced, where I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't fit in, and I just didn't like where I grew up, to be blunt. And when I heard Fargo, and I heard it was probably the furthest away out of all the places recruiting me, I took one recruiting trip. I didn't go anywhere else, and I said, I'm going there. And I came in the dead of winter and all of that, and thought Fargo was actually a town in Universal Studios. I didn't know it was a real place on Earth, and but took a shot at it. And when I first got to town, I was very homesick. My first experience, I think I saw a girl driving a pickup truck with chewing tobacco and over by the ag part of campus, and I was like, oh boy, what am I getting myself into? But no, the first year was challenging for me. It was a culture shock for sure. And
that was that D1 change, right? Under
Yep.
Craig Bull, right, when they were shifting out of Division II?
Yeah, I got to experience the loss against UND, the last matchup, yeah. But yeah, I was a wide receiver. So I come in as a wide receiver, didn't punt, and the punter at the time was a senior, and we were holding tryouts for punter, and Gus Bradley was the guy who saw me kick some punts, and I became now the backup punter. And to make a long story short, became a full-time punter at NDSU, went home the first summer to learn punting, and ironically, Ray Guy was holding a camp at my high school, which is the best punter of all time. And I ended up learning from Ray Guy, fell in love with punting, turned into an All-American punter, and had the opportunity to go to the NFL for punting. But along the way, just fell in love with NDSU, fell in love with Fargo, just felt like I was adopted by the community, adopted by the program, and it became this home I've missed my whole life, and just really was proud of everything that I had. And I've never felt that before growing up. I never felt that pride. I always felt this misplaced, So with the help of the community and NDSU, I took a chance for the NFL and spent 2 years in and out of different teams. Went to the Patriots for a couple months, suited up for a game with Cleveland Browns. I was with the Colts for 7 months. And what's crazy, in 7 months in the off season, in the NFL, you don't make your salary. You only make your salary during the season. So I was making $212 a week. And people are, what do you do? Well, I play a punter for the Colts, and I work at this Tesoro to pay bills. So it was this kind of a big misconception. But had a lot of free time. I had no money. I sat in an extended stay suite for, all but 2 hours of the day. And it just gave me this opportunity to sit on a computer and come up with business plans, and I just always wanted to do a business. But once I finally gave up football, came back to Fargo, started a business where it was a VIP card, and went and signed up 50 businesses, and that card and turned into an event calendar, which turned into a magazine, and turned into multiple magazines, and it's just one of those, like I said, random kind of timeline.
Let's talk about Fargo Monthly and some other things you do. Tell me about the magazine, what you cover, and what's the focus?
Yeah, so Fargo Monthly is one of our publishing company's 4 magazines. It's where it's all started for me. The motivation to start a magazine geared towards Fargo, what's happening, was that pride kind of kicked in again around 2009 when I saw this magazine called RX in the community that was produced by a company out of St. Cloud. And the content was about 80% generalized content that had nothing to do with Fargo. And to me, I just took the offense to that and just was, well, this needs to represent our community correctly. And I used that motivation to create a event guide and what's going on in the community. Not to mention, all my friends were leaving to go to Minneapolis because they said there was nothing to do here, so I wanted to convince them otherwise. So just really, have so much pride in Fargo that it's allowed me to show my pride through the magazine. And I'm a big believer in having fun and getting out there, music, arts, comedy, dining,
Restaurants,
and and this area has so much of that to offer. So it's just an honor to be able to expose some of those positive things.
Is that kind of what you cover? Business, arts, restaurants? From looking through it, that seems like that's kind of the focus. Just pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Downtown, of course. Yeah.
The business has been an organic growth, never really took any loans or anything. And so as the business grows, as the magazine grows, we like to extend those sections. And that's what we're trying to do. In 2015, we want to go beyond entertainment, dining, shopping, but we'd like to add more business, more economic growth, real estate, health, and kids. We want to add a ton of things for families to do in the community. And we're finally at the point in business where we can afford to add the pages. And so we're really excited about creating more of a whole-rounded Fargo resource.
How much staff do you have working for you on these magazines?
Between all 4 magazines, we're at 26 on staff right now. And we take a lot of pride in, we have a lot of interns that now have careers with us, and we love reaching out to our community campuses to find some help. And we've been really grateful to get something called Operation Intern from the state of North Dakota. So we've been getting some grants from the state to help us pay for interns, and so it's been really cool to be able to do that.
Can you put your finger, Mike, on what is it right now that makes Fargo so special? The community seems to always grow in spite of really not reliant on the oil boom. As an arts community downtown, can you put your finger on why it does so well in surveys about young people? Best places for young people, best places to raise a family, these kind of things?
Well, it's the people. It's absolutely the people. To start a business like I did is almost impossible in bigger markets. And not just because of the competition, but because of the way people treat each other. I'm a true believer of that. They don't give you a chance. You got to be born into things. Here, people genuinely want to see people succeed. I've never experienced that in my life, and I have so much that I'm grateful for. And my entire business has been built around the support of the community. And if I just work hard at it, it's going to be successful. And you don't see that in a lot of places. The pride in the community has in giving back or helping. I can't tell you how many charities and nonprofits. Our Stride magazine could be 300 pages of charitable things that go on every month. It's just unbelievable, the giving side of the community. So as a young entrepreneur and someone who thinks that they're not capable yet, it's really opportunistic because there's so much help available to get there.
And what's the reaction to the magazines? How's it going?
It's phenomenal. It's great that we get to print just positive information. That helps, right? We don't always try to stick away from opinion and all that, but it's been since day one absolutely phenomenal. The feedback is great. We try to reach out to as many community members as we can to help develop the content too, so we can kind of include the voice of the community in our publications. And it's just the beginning. We're in year 4 of business, and it's only hitting the tip of where I want to go. So,
now I know you live downtown, right? And you love downtown. What's been the key to the explosion downtown? I know Doug Burgum's put a lot of money downtown. That's helped. We have the Fargo Theater, a lot of restaurants. What's been the key, do you think, for the downtown resurgence, Mike?
I think personally, the community and society in general is going towards quality. You're seeing just the trends of everything is quality now, and from fashion to where you go, and design to the restaurants, And there's a high emphasis on quality downtown. And there's one good example is this Fargo Billiards Gastropub out there, where
sure.
when that thing first built, people are crunching numbers going, how the heck is this thing going to go? I mean, this gigantic facility, the heat costs alone have to be crazy. It's 58, pool tables. And I go in there now and the place is packed. And I truly believe it's because it's a quality establishment. It's a nice place for people to go and it's doing phenomenal. So I think the quality of what downtown represents is getting people, capitalizing on that trend. Whereas maybe 10, 15 years ago, more of the hoodie and sweatpants and some of that stuff was a little more trendy, the dive establishments and all that. So that's my kind of personal opinion.
Are the lofts affordable downtown, Mike, or are they still, a little high for people who aspire to live downtown?
I think they're affordable for the lack of, or they're not affordable for the lack of parking. Because I'm looking right now, I'm looking for a little more space, and you look at the price, and then you go, oh, I have to park my vehicle, my girlfriend's vehicle outside all winter. And you're like, if you're going to spend that much money, you're going to have a nice vehicle, you want to take care of it. So I really hope they develop more parking scenarios downtown that are enclosed.
A lot of people talk about the death of the magazine, everything's going online. What's your thoughts on that? Because you've succeeded, but a lot of magazines do fail. What's your theory on the future of magazines?
My theory is generalized content type magazines are gonna struggle. For instance, General Health magazine talking about chicken is good for protein. Men's Health, these things. You could find that on Yahoo. You can find it online. But niche publications are doing well. And I've been to multiple conferences this year to speak amongst the peers in the community to talk about best practices and what other people are seeing. But if you put, for what our mission is, like Design and Living, our design magazine with homes and interior, if we just list photos of homes, you can go anywhere online to look at influential pictures. There's tons of galleries. But if we can tie local designers, local architects, have them create a monthly, contribution to why that's somewhere you should, or a decor that you should invest in, then we create this exclusive content that you can only access through the publication and giving readers that want or that need to, what are they going to say next? And so we've seen a lot of success on good editorial, and that's next year we're gonna double our budget for editorial. We really want quality content, so the readers can only go to the magazines for that, and they create this kind of fan base and following on a monthly basis.
How do you find stories and profiles? Do sometimes people find you? How does that work?
Yeah, it's nice that we finally got to a little more established as a company, so the stories are much easier to get now because when we call people, they've heard of us, and now we have people reaching out. We also perform surveys, in many different forms, from Facebook to emails, and just trying to get opinion from people on what they'd like to see, what they've seen in the past, what they're interested in learning more about. And it's just, and there's, going back to that support of the community, it's amazing that we can call, let's say an example was last January, in 5 days flat, we did influential figures of Fargo and giving their year preview of what to expect. And it was Doug Burgum, Heidi Heidkamp, Senator Hoeven, it was Mayor Walker, what's his name, from Dakota Medical Foundation. Anyway,
Sure.
8 of them.
Right.
In 5 days, we got a photo shoot and an interview out of them. To me, that was one of the best milestones for the magazine. To be able to get a hold of these extremely busy people, take a phone call, sure, we'll do it, a photo and an interview in 5 days. I said, well, that's pretty cool. And so now we're going, how do we expand on that? How do we not be shy to ask for some really cool stories? And really where we want to go is more investigative reporting, more research articles, and really be known for our journalism and changing people's perceptions or changing the way, making an impact on the community.
You have a lot of arts profiles too. Talk about the art scene in Fargo-Moorhead. Really exploded, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. I'm a big fan myself. There's a lot more categories now for art. There's more venues popping up, and it's just showing that I think the culture's changing in the community, and I think we're seeing a lot of quality art situations. The art community is great to work with too. You know, very visual. We're actually reaching out this month to find an artist who will design or actually illustrate our entire cover for our December issue of A Year in Review. And we're going to buy a canvas that's like about 8 feet high, and we're going to time-lapse video the artist actually drawing out the whole cover. So you'll be able to see the entire process of the cover, and then that would be what turns out. So a lot of things like that we want to do to help the art community kind of showcase some of the work, but in a creative way, where they're contributing to maybe the way the magazine looks, and but then showing readers, you know, here's what went into it, and you know, just more of a fun approach. But
a lot of restaurant profiles too. What are some of your favorites, and why do restaurants succeed and why do some fail? Is it just quality? And what are some of your favorites?
I think most of it's quality and it's hospitality. I'm a big fan of the Mezzaluna and Rustica, and I would say I'm a big fan because of hospitality. When I walk in there, they know my name. They're unbelievable at service, and I think that's something that's we just Fargo got to step up. Everybody's got to step up their game. It's really, it's cool to see. You know, we have the consumers, but they're demanding quality and they're demanding hospitality. So I think if anybody's to get into the restaurant business, you better be ready to be top notch. And that's the trend I'm seeing. It's you know, if it's quality service, quality food, and quality experience, then it's going to work. You know, so.
Can you put your finger, Mike, on what differentiates Fargo from the rest of the state? Because I always think Grand Forks is kind of a smaller version of Fargo, but Fargo is really different from the rest of the state. Is it because it's influenced more by the Twin Cities, you think? Or put your finger on that, how it relates to the rest of the state, if you can, if you understand what I'm asking.
I think the university system
Yeah.
influences it with the different types of majors. I mean, you know, there's a strong creative community of college students that are kind of overlooked sometimes, from MSU, MM State, Concordia. There is quite a bit of creative-minded people around here. You tend to think it's ag engineer because of NDSU, but there's a lot of that side of the brain people in this community, which I think might lack in other communities, coming from the
Highly educated population, isn't it? Yeah, here.
I think so, but you know, I think Grand Forks, Bismarck, I think there's the colleges there don't have as many of the broadcasting, design, editorial, you know, the creative majors, and I get to see them all the time because we're constantly interviewing new students for internships, and it's pretty cool to see. Even NDSU is going into broadcasting. They have the BIN network that's going really well, and their comm department's exploding, but. That's just maybe one element, but I think I just think there's this group of people in the last 10 years that have really emphasized more of a progressive culture around here, and I think that's all it takes sometimes is a group of people and a group of influencers to make that happen.
Got about 30 seconds left, Mike. Again, if people want to get Fargo Monthly or your other magazines, how can they find them? Where can they get them?
Sure. FargoMonthly.com is always a good way to read it digitally. Otherwise, we put them all over the community in Hornbachers, grocery stores, stands throughout. But check the website. We're going to have more opportunities to be able to subscribe, just get them to your door, read them online. So.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.
My guest has been Mike Dragosevich, the publisher of Fargo Monthly and 3 other magazines in our area. Stay tuned for more.
It may not be common knowledge, but there have been lots of innovators and inventors who have sprung up in Northwest Minnesota over the years. Currently, a traveling exhibit chronicling such people is making its way through Northwest Minnesota. We caught up with the exhibit recently at the Mahnomen County Museum.
The traveling exhibits are always a big draw to the museums here in Northwest Minnesota simply because they're something different, something new. They bring out topics or people that you might not otherwise. So for us in Becker County, we featured Lake Shirts, which is a local business that still exists and was started in a basement making t-shirts for the beach, right? And now they employ over 400 people. They have contracts with the NCAA. So it's become a very nationally known business. And the great thing with some of these connections is that you might make those connections with businesses or entrepreneurs who wouldn't be in your museum otherwise. I think people forget that history is happening now. It's not just something that's in the past. It's not a stagnant thing. And so I think a lot of the benefits of these traveling exhibits is that it gets those kind of contemporary connections in place so that the people who are featured on the panels have relatives or descendants that could bring them into the space and can give us new ways of interacting with the history that's happening around us.
Just through the Minnesota Legacy Grant Amendment, and our consortium, we meet every month, and we just got together and thought it would be a real interesting exhibit to highlight our people from the area that we can be very proud of. Mrs. Frances Kiana is a Ojibwe lady. She had made black ash baskets. She weaved them, and she was a very important elder of the community. So her baskets are all over the world. They're in the Smithsonian Institute and even in Europe, and we're very proud to have had her a part of our community. And the other person was Dr. William Curson, and he was born in Holland, but he came to America, and he was a farmer in Gregory Township in Mahnomen County. But then he also developed a seed corn, and it took him like over 10 years to develop the seed corn for this part of the country. And that was our inventor, and we're very proud of him.
So I think Widman's is an obvious choice in terms of all of us love candy, right? Who doesn't? And certainly that was a business that was, again, a very kind of locally grown that's now reached a larger level, and everybody likes those chippers, right? We also have people who have invented things like Polaris snowmobiles, which of course is huge in not only our part of the world, but other places. We have Matt Tracks, which again is a huge industrial business. We have Koya Knutson, who I think is very interesting in that she actually was basically the creator of the student loan system for the federal government. So I think some of those big, kind of larger scale industries or things that people have used to help them through their life have their roots in Northwest Minnesota. The Minnesota's Historic Northwest was founded just at the beginning of the 2000s, and this was a group that was originally put together to try to kind of organize the rural museums in Northwest Minnesota. We're very geographically separate, and so it gives us a chance to interact with our colleagues. It also gave us a chance to self-promote or mutually promote, so we could pool our limited resources into larger scale projects. For publicity, for tourism. We worked with the Minnesota Tourism Council and Minnesota Historical Society to help with some of those things. It's also helped us to really standardize our kind of best practices for museums so we can learn those things, get some professional development, get some standards in place for small museums so that we all can go from county to county and see that the history is being preserved in a proper way.
Funding is top priority, and I think that's with every museum. Every small museum deals with that. We do not receive much help from the county, so it's mainly memberships and memorials and donations.
Legacy funding for Northwest Minnesota, specifically in collaborative efforts like this exhibit with Minnesota's Historic Northwest, has really made an enormous difference in terms of access to not only history, but also to kind of facilities, traveling exhibits, some of the basic things that small museums need, like heating and cooling, right? Things like archival supplies, materials, being able to produce quality exhibits that we might not be able to afford otherwise, being able to produce quality programming for people that we might not be able to do otherwise. So it's really allowed us to almost act as though we are a large-scale institution on a more kind of intimate rural level, which is a wonderful thing. I think we're very, stoic Scandinavian types in Northwest Minnesota, maybe German once in a while, right? And I think that because of that, we're very kind of modest and unassuming in terms of our accomplishments. And I think this exhibit really gives us a chance to let some of those people shine a little bit who maybe we haven't realized are from Northwest Minnesota, and bring out the best of us.
There's a good story about him because he was.
Well, that's all we have on Prairie Pulse for this week. And as always, thanks for watching.
Funding for Minnesota Legacy programs are provided by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, and by the members of Prairie Public.